All right, picture this. You go to court, you win your case, the judge sides with you completely. Awesome, right? But then you get the bill from your lawyer, you do the math, and wait a minute, you've actually lost money? How is that even possible? Well, this huge gap between winning a case and actually walking away whole often boils down to one simple thing: who pays the attorney's fees? And let me tell you, in China, the rules around this can lead to some really surprising results.
So, to kick things off, let's dive into a real-world puzzle. It's a story about two guys, a Mr. Qin, who was the lender, and a Mr. Zhang, who was the borrower. Now, on the surface, this looked like a totally straightforward case. And yeah, Mr. Qin won. But he still walked away from the courthouse feeling like he'd lost. So, the big question is, why?
Okay, and this is the core of the mystery, right? See, Mr. Qin and Mr. Zhang had a contract, and in that contract, there was a super clear clause. It said, hey, if you break this deal, you're paying the other guy's legal fees. Simple enough. So when Mr. Qin won, he naturally asked the court to make Mr. Zhang cough up the 5,000 yuan he paid his lawyer. But the court? They said, nope. What's going on here?
So let's break down the numbers. Mr. Qin lent Mr. Zhang just 2,500 yuan. When Mr. Zhang wouldn't pay up, Mr. Qin did the right thing. He sued. Now here's the kicker. He paid his lawyer 5,000 yuan to get his 2,500 yuan back. And based on that contract we talked about, he asked the court to make Mr. Zhang cover that 5,000 yuan fee. But the court only gave him 2,500 yuan for his fees, exactly half of what he claimed. To figure out why that happened, we've got to understand the basic rules of the legal game in China.
All right, so before we can crack the code on Mr. Qin's case, we need to get our heads around the foundational principle. This is the default setting, the starting point for pretty much every single civil dispute in China.
This default rule is called the principle of separate responsibility. You see the characters there? Gazitan Danyenza. And what it means is actually pretty simple. Typically, whether you win or lose, you are responsible for paying your own lawyer's bill. The logic here is that choosing to hire a lawyer and how much you pay them is seen as a personal decision. It's not considered a direct harm caused by the other side. So unless there's a specific exception, those costs just stay where they are.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where things get really interesting. Because that default rule, it gets completely flipped on its head by a whole bunch of really powerful exceptions. Situations where the loser absolutely has to pay the winner's legal fees. Okay, the biggest one, the most common exception by far, is right here, the contract. If you put it in writing, just like Mr. Qin did, the courts will almost always enforce it. But the law also carves out exceptions to protect people who are owed money. Like, let's say a debtor tries to get sneaky and transfer all their assets away just to avoid paying you. Well, the legal fees you rack up to undo that shady move, you can charge them to the debtor. Same thing if you have to chase down a guarantor to get paid.
The law also goes to bat for creators and just, regular people. In pretty much all intellectual property cases, we're talking copyright, trademarks, patents, the winner gets to claim their legal fees. This also covers stuff like unfair competition, say if a rival company steals your trade secrets. And it even extends to protecting our personal rights, which is super relevant today. Think about things like online defamation or a company misusing your facial recognition data. In those cases, the loser pays.
And there's more. The courts will also shift the costs in cases that are for the public good or to punish people for acting in bad faith. So if you're a nonprofit organization suing a company for polluting a river, you can probably get your fees covered. And this one's really important. If someone sues you maliciously, not because they think they can win, but just to waste your time and money, the court can make them pay your legal bills as a punishment. It's a way of stopping frivolous lawsuits. And believe it or not, the list of exceptions keeps going. A lot of arbitration cases follow this loser pays rule, and some cities even have their own local laws. Shenzhen, for example, has a rule where in certain labor disputes, the winning employee can make the employer pay their lawyer's fee. The bottom line here is that the exceptions are everywhere.
Okay, so let's bring it all back to our guy, Mr. Qin. He had a contract, right? That's the number one biggest exception we just talked about, so he should be totally in the clear, right? Well, this is where we discover the secret twist, the hidden catch. There is one final hurdle that every single claim for attorney's fees has to clear.
And here's the crucial point. Even when you have a contract, the court always has the final say on the amount. They're not just going to take your lawyer's invoice and rubber stamp it. As this quote from a real court ruling shows, they do what's called a reasonableness check. They look at the whole situation from every angle to figure out what's actually fair.
So how does this reasonableness test actually work? Well, the court asks a few questions. First, how much money was actually at stake? Second, how complex was this case, really? Third, how much work did the lawyer actually put in? And fourth, what's the going rate for this kind of legal work? So, let's apply that to Mr. Chin's situation. The loan was only 2,500 yuan. The case itself was super simple. So, asking for a 5,000 yuan fee, literally double the amount of the loan, just didn't pass the sniff test. The court said, look, 2,500 yuan is a much more reasonable fee for a simple case like this. And that's all they got. And just like that, the mystery is solved.
Okay, so now that we know the rules of the game and that tricky reasonableness catch, how can you actually use this information? How do you put yourself in the best possible spot to get your legal fees paid back if you ever need to? Well, here's a simple 4-step playbook for you.
First, and this is the big one, get it in writing. Anytime you're signing a contract, make sure there's a crystal clear clause that says the person who breaks the deal has to pay the attorney's fees. Second, you have to ask for it. When you file your lawsuit, you have to list the legal fees as a specific claim. The court isn't just going to give it to you out of the blue. Third, have your proof ready. You've got to show the court your contract with your lawyer and the receipt that proves you actually paid them. And finally, the lesson from Mr. Qin, be reasonable. Make sure the fee you're asking for makes sense for the case. Don't claim a huge amount for a simple dispute, or you might get your claim cut in half too.
So you see, it all comes down to this. Winning your case is great, but making sure you don't actually lose money in the process is a whole different ballgame. And now you understand the rules that give you the power to protect yourself. The difference between a true victory and one that only looks good on paper can literally come down to one single sentence in a contract. So the real question is, next time, are you going to add it to yours?